Good afternoon, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So a lot of people are looking for a recession. They're looking for the evidence of a recession that has taken place, not really thinking about what it is that they need to ask in order to find out whether or not the recession has already kicked into gear or whether or not they are going to experience the recession themselves. Now, I know that's kind of weird to think because everybody would be like, well, we're all going to experience the recession if there's a recession, right? But not everybody is going to be affected the same way. Like, if a recession is caught by surprise, like if you were caught by surprise by a recession, then most likely you wouldn't have positioned yourself in order to have dealt with the recession because you just didn't see it coming. Other people who have positioned themselves for an economic downturn or even a collapse that has yet to be experienced may have been positioned this way for years, wondering and waiting for it to actually come. So how it is that you position yourself in order to deal with an economic downturn, if it may or may not occur, is really determined by how it is that you interpret the information that is coming. Now, a lot of times we wait for it to arrive in the news. We wait for somebody to tell us, hey, this is what's happening within the economy. Not really thinking that everybody's economy is really individual. It's how you deal with it. Like, the position that an 18-year-old kid just getting started in life and how it is that they are going to set up a retirement savings as opposed to somebody who's 80 years old trying to figure out what it is that they're going to do to hold on to their retirement. These people are not going to be making the same decisions or even looking at the information in the same way. So again, it's really critical for each individual person to take this information on for themselves and to ask the questions, like the appropriate questions that really would answer what it is that you need to do. One of the things that I look at, because I do retail sales for a living, and I do this inside of the building industry, is that I can really have firsthand access to what the builders are up to. Like how much material costs are going to be, how much lead times are. All these things I have firsthand real-time information to. Most people have to wait for this information to come out. How many builders are actually active? How many homeowners are doing remodels as opposed to, say, moving and buying another house? Like, these are things that I see. I talk to real estate agents every day. I talk to contractors. I talk to wholesale distributors. I talk to mills. I talk to loggers. I mean, it's amazing on how much information I can get just from being within the industry itself. Like, not even going off and researching on Google or anything, but just simply asking a lot of the people who are around me. And a lot of people could probably do this for themselves, even if you were to work at, say, like a mall. I think a mall would be an excellent place to try and get economic information from. You can see how many customers are rolling through. You can talk to the different vendors who are out there to find out what it is that people are buying, how much they're spending. I mean, there's a lot of economic information that can come from just being at a mall. And the same thing goes for truck driving or anything that's really out there. I look at some of the information that I'm getting out of the freight waves. Freight waves is an excellent place to go to for economic information, especially when it comes to the distribution network. We're finding right now that the freight shipping costs have dropped dramatically. Like, I was looking at an article, I think it said something like 90%, like a 90% drop in the shipping rates for shipping a container, I believe, from China to the United States. I mean, this is incredible. I don't know if that information is exactly accurate, but I'm going to leave a link down in the description to that article for you to go ahead and judge the information for yourself. But this is something that I'm noticing myself. In fact, I have brokers, shipping brokers, who call me every day looking to haul merchandise, whether it's, something that I need shipped to me or something that one of the, customers of mine want shipped to them. They're wanting to be in the middle. They want to be the ones who haul that thing around. And I have to tell them, it was just like, we have our own fleet of vehicles and really our vendors deliver to us, so we don't really use shipping brokers or outside brokerages. But the fact is that these guys are calling me on a regular basis. Now, during the pandemic, when there was a shortage of truckers, these guys, I didn't hear anything from them. They were nowhere to be found. Now, they're calling me 3, 4, 5 times a day, and I'm not the only salesman who's taking these calls. I hear other people taking these calls as well, telling them, hey, man, we don't really use these outside brokerages. So it really sends a signal to me that there is a high demand for hauling stuff around. That means truckers are not doing well. And now I reported on this many times, even on my own channel, about how it is that the trucking industry is going to be suffering soon due to the bullwhip effect, we started finding that taking place. Like, companies like ZELLE going out of business or going bankrupt. These guys are having issues right now because of the overwhelming consumer demand that simply did not exist. Now, there was an overwhelming consumer demand, but it was fraudulent in like actuality. Like, I mean, it wasn't like fraudulent in the sense that people didn't have money. Like, they had the money because they got a stimulus. And it wasn't fraudulent in the sense that they did do a bunch of orders. Like, those two things took place, but it wasn't but a flash in the pan, right? It wasn't sustainable. It wasn't real in the sense that people went out there and worked and then wanted to buy these items, and this overwhelming consumer demand came from the production and savings of the people. It didn't work like that. It was an overwhelming consumer demand due to a stimulus package, and then at the same time, there was a severing of the supply chain. Between these two, it created an overwhelming consumer demand within the distribution network. All they could see was orders and lots of them, and people were like screaming, where is this stuff, right? And as it was stuck out there on ships, as it was stuck out there in containers, as it was stuck out there in freight lines, everybody was screaming, how is it that we get this stuff, right? And then you started seeing the overwhelming production of warehouses, trucking companies. Like, all these people started doing a lot more hiring. They were even talking about bringing the National Guard in order to move the containers around, right, to get them away from the ports. This was all issues that had come from a severing of the supply chain and a stimulus package that had gone out. Once those things are gone and have dissipated through the system, they're going to find that there was no need for all these shipping containers, right? Somebody left a comment in one of my recent videos asking about that very thing. It was like, how come we have so many shipping containers is piling up everywhere? It's because they were all locked up, filled with stuff, sitting in a port, sitting on a ship, sitting on a rail car, sitting somewhere in a parking lot, but not being unloaded. And then there was this overwhelming consumer demand, again, that was false, that had massive amounts of orders coming out of China, who were then screaming for more containers. Remember, they were trying to figure out how to get the containers from the United States back over to China. This started ramping up production of new containers. Now there's an overabundance of containers. It's the bullwhip effect. If you understand how the bullwhip effect works, then it starts making a lot more sense on why these things are starting to occur. We're going to find that freightliner, like the ships that are used to haul containers around, there's going to be an overwhelming amount of these things coming onto market here over the next couple of years due to the fact that these ships were locked up outside of the ports of LA and San Diego, wherever they were, right? Once they have been locked up, the demand for new ships started to increase. They started building new ships. Well, now these new ships aren't necessarily needed. And what's going to happen once these things come online and start, being used? It's going to start driving shipping rates down even more because these ships were not really needed in the first place. But yet during that COVID lockdowns and overwhelming consumer demand and the locking up of the supply chain, right, these ships were in high demand. As they were, sitting off of the coast of LA not doing anything, they were looking for more ships. So they started building them. And now, again, this is the bullwhip effect, as we find that these ships really weren't needed. You're going to find a lot of ships being decommissioned. Good ships, right? Ones that are still functioning. They're going to get decommissioned because they're simply not going to be needed, and only the new ships are going to be really, are going to be the ones that are going to be desired. Interesting times we're running through. All right, uneducated economist babbling at lunch. You guys let me know.